care of yourself and your family this Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Joining us today as our guest co-host is a journalist who works for ESPN and now writes for The Atlantic. Everyone, give it up for Jemele Hill. Welcome to the show, girl.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here. I watch you guys a lot, so this is definitely going on the career highlight list.
Oh my gosh, that means a lot to us, and trust me.
For us, too. We were excited to have you
Excited.
on.
Yes. This highlight reel better be keeping it 100 because we're about to keep it real at this girl chat table, right?
I know. Y'all gonna get all in my business. I'm ready.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Okay, Jemele, thank you for joining us the day before Thanksgiving. So do you have any big plans for tomorrow?
I do. This is actually going to be a very transitional Thanksgiving. So when I transitioned, I decided to go all the way, right? So I moved to L.A. less than a month ago. And not only did I move to L.A., I moved here with my boyfriend, right?
Oh, cool.
So my mother's flying into town. And, well, this is going to be interesting.
Awesome.
Everything's up okay. Wow. So my mother's coming to town, and so we're going to do our first sort of Thanksgiving together. So if you guys have any tips on how to make this boyfriend-mother thing
Have they
work.
met?
They've definitely met, but you know it's different when you spend a holiday together.
Yes.
I haven't yet told him, so we're all from Detroit. Much like you.
Yes.
So my boyfriend's favorite team is the Detroit Lions.
Okay.
My mother hates the quarterback of the Lions.
Oh.
Right? She does. So I'm just hoping that won't be awkward when we're watching Thanksgiving.
Oh, that's going to be good.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, you got to tweet us about it,
Yes,
okay?
yes.
Yeah, I want to know. Is it literally just going to be the three of you?
No, it's not. My best friend, she's also here. Her father
Okay, cool.
and
So it
mother.
won't be-
So it'll
Yeah.
be like a Friendsgiving / with a little bit of family. Mom's making the mac and cheese. So
Hey.
We're going to be talking about that a little later. But first of all, I want to tell you the new documentary, Shut Up and Dribble, that you worked on with LeBron James is great. We're going to talk about that as well. But first, let's keep it real with a little bit of girl chat, okay? Can we?
do this.
All right.
Okay.
Speaking of LeBron James, last week, he, along with the LA Lakers teammates, decided to wear shirts honoring the victims of the Thousand Oaks shooting, including Tamara's niece, Elena Housley. The players wore the victims' names on their back with the word enough on the front. LeBron, regarding the tragedy, said, quote, "It's just very troubling times for everyone. You know, as parents, how can you be comfortable sending your kids to school or send them to church or send them to the movies or send them to the mall? People are able to just go and buy guns and do things with them, and innocent lives are being taken." So, Jemele, I know you've been very vocal about athletes using their platforms and their voices to try to make a difference. What did you think of this statement?
Well, this is just on cue and on par with who LeBron James has evolved to be. I think about where he was when he entered this league at 17, 18 years old,
Right.
and how he's been able to leverage his voice, his platform, to basically open up, I think, a new era for a lot of professional athletes. There was a time where they were a little bit reluctant to speak up because I do tend to think that athletes follow whoever is that athlete of that generation. So a lot of athletes followed the Michael Jordan blueprint, which was to stay apolitical, make a lot of money, become a global brand. Now LeBron is showing them that you can have so much ownership of your story, of who you are and what you believe in, and still make the money. And so now... And so by him speaking out on this, just like a few years ago when him and other NBA players, they wore the Eric Garner I Can't Breathe shirts.
Right.
They also, when he was with a member of the Miami Heat, they wore the hoodies because of Trayvon Martin's murder. So this is just in line with who LeBron is, and it's great for the NBA when your best player happens to be your most vocal leader because the NBA has no choice but to follow suit.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
So great.
Yeah. So great. I really agree with you. I don't think that artists and athletes have to mix their politics, but I respect them when they do. Because, first of all, I don't want to think that artists aren't influenced by real issues that we hear in the world, you know, or we see in the world, and athletes play a certain way because of what's going on out here. But I think it's also, it makes them turn into I look at them differently when they stand and speak out their politics, because when you speak out, you're becoming brave because you run the risk of alienating some of your fans who don't agree with you. And that's when you say, I want you to follow me. I don't want you to just follow me because of what I do. I want you to stand with me for what I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
That's a different thing.
Yeah. Well, you know, I have a question, though. It's like, it just seems different between the NBA and the NFL. What happened with the NFL?
Money. To be honest, the NBA players, much LeBron James included, they have a lot more financial leverage and a bigger financial stake. The contracts in the NBA are guaranteed. So you can, if you hear about their politics and don't like them, it doesn't matter. Direct deposit's still kicking in, right?
Okay. Oh, wow.
With the NFL players, they do not have guaranteed contracts. Now, they'll get a certain amount of guaranteed money, but because the owners have such financial leverage, that is also used to suppress them and suppress their voices.
Wow.
It's the way football is also marketed. Notice that they market football as a value sport, right? That this is about faith and family and football. So it's just a different dynamic. Look at the NBA fan base. Like, they expect these players to be authentic and real. It's an individual sport. And they like it when guys show edge. They like it when guys color a little bit outside the lines. But football itself has always been about suppressing individuality for conformity. So that's why it just feels so much different.
Oh, and the thing is with the NFL, too, with the whole Colin, personally, because you're a sports person, can he still play? You think he can still play?
He absolutely can. Look, they're signing guys off the street who basically been sitting on their couch. All right, they are, and everyone knows that Colin Kaepernick is very talented. I know the 49ers weren't winning when he last played for them, but that wasn't all his fault. I mean, the fact of the matter is that this is a guy who was one underthrow away from going to back-to-back Super Bowls. I mean, his very first playoff game against Green Bay, he rushed for a record 181 yards. He is a much better option than some of the guys that you see now getting chances, or at least looks. T.J. Yates, Mark Sanchez, who hasn't won a game in 3 years. Like, he is a much better option than them. But the NFL owners, they're dug in on this. He's never going to play in the NFL again. And it's really sad to say that, because this is somebody who's worked his entire life to have this dream of playing professional football, and to have it taken away from him, not because he did something dastardly or heinous, it's because he wanted to stand for equality and justice. I mean, just think about this, and I think about this all the time, and it bears repeating. If Colin Kaepernick had put his hands on a woman, he'd be in the NFL.
Wow.
Right now. But his crime is that he used his voice to bring attention to an issue that is very much a real problem in this country and has been for decades.
Just one more thing. What do you think, in your opinion, we should do? Because I know there's some people that are boycotting the NFL. If he's never going to come back, what kind of concessions should we ask for the NFL so we can start it? Because we do miss the games.
Right.
I mean, to be honest,
Well, I think a lot of his peers, frankly, let him down, because the moment that they sort of allowed this to happen, or that they saw this going on, enough of them didn't collectively act. Some of them did individually, the Eric Reeds, Malcolm Jenkins, other players did, but they should have collectively said, we're not going to put up with this, because, it's much like with some of the issues happening in our society today that we see happening to different groups who don't look like us. And instead of standing with those groups, a lot of people have otherism in them, regardless of color or gender.
Right.
If they come for them, they're going to come for you. And that's the mentality that you have to have. And the players should know that anytime they use this amount of heavy-handedness to silence somebody, eventually they're going to silence you about something you care about. So you should look at this as a collective issue that you all had to fight, and they didn't. And I think that's where the battle was lost.
Wow. I'm with Jeannie. Always use your platform to speak up for something, for a better cause, for a bigger cause. Speaking of making a statement, video recently surfaced of several black teens in hoodies being kicked out and arrested in a Tennessee mall for allegedly violating the mall's dress code. Well, after the video went viral, 4 ladies decided they needed to take a stand to prove a point about racial profiling. The 4 friends, who are white, decided to put on black hoodies themselves and walk around the mall to see if they would be subjected to the same treatment as the young men were.
Guess what?
Exactly. The ladies did several laps around the mall, sometimes with their hoodies even up, sometimes with them down, and said they were not kicked out or arrested. They said at most, if they had their hoodies up, a security guard would politely ask them to take it down. One of the women, Shannon Arthur, said, I respect law enforcement and mall cops, but there's no question that some members of our community are constantly harassed and traumatized, where those with less melanin are given a pass. We must do better.
I agree. It's just what you just said about being collective.
Yes.
And this is a prime example of another culture looking at something happening that's wrong, a racial profile, and saying, well, let us see if it happens to us.
Yeah.
This is a prime example, and I have to give it up to those women because they were proving a point, and the point was proven.
Yes.
So, you know, when you try to say that other people or other cultures don't see what we're going through, it's not true. It's just the fact that, you know, they probably thought that they was doing the walk. You know how the white women be walking in the malls and stuff in the morning? They probably like, you know, but if it was some black people, like, they're not walking in the malls.
But I gotta give it to them. You know, like, that speaks volumes when you have a heart, just not for your own people, but for people in general.
Yes.
And that's how we all should be thinking. Where there is wrong, you have to seek justice.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if it's just for your people or it's because I relate. I think what they did was absolutely amazing. And like you said, they got the point across.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. And I want to also note that, you know, they got kicked out because the mall claimed that hoodies wasn't part of the dress code there,
The
right?
black boys.
For just hoodies in general, and that's why they took the black
Right.
men out. But the mall's code of conduct, there actually isn't a hoodie policy. The mall's code of conduct just says to wear appropriate clothing.
Who
so,
determines
To
that?
a mall?
Yeah, right?
Okay.
And who
It's a mall.
determines what's appropriate and what's not appropriate?
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
And here's what's sad. The hoodies aren't the problem. Being black and male clearly isn't the problem. Racial profiling by
Is
law
the
enforcement
problem.
is the problem. Because at the end of the day, I really hate to bring this up, but we cannot forget to put the blame for Trayvon Martin's death in the right place. And this is exactly why this is still happening everywhere today.
Well, first of all, I'm sure you guys have gotten this question before from white people who want to know how they can be an ally.
Right.
This is how you're an ally.
Yeah,
right.
This is how you do it.
When you, as you lady so eloquently said, when you realize the fight is not just about you, it's about everybody. So the reality is that in today, even though it's 2018, and despite the racial progress that has been made, black skin is still weaponized. There's a fear of black presence. We've seen it throughout this year with the young men who were accosted at Starbucks, you know, being black and barbecuing. Like, it's so many different examples of this. And this is why, you know, to kind of loop it back to Colin Kaepernick, this is what he's kneeling for. It was this very thing. Because, see, what happens in this scenario, you have the police that have arrested them. So all of a sudden, you have a young black man or young black men who have something on their record. What if these young men want to go to college? All right, those colleges look into their background and then they see this. Because it won't be put down that they were violating a dress code. It'll say something like trespassing or something that sounds a little more dangerous. So suddenly they have a mark on them and they're not even able to vote. And that should say everything about where we are in terms of how we view young black men or black people, period, and just the system of justice in this country. I guarantee you that it was a whole lot of people probably stealing in them all that day. And you worried about a hoodie.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I have such an issue with people whose argument is, well, then just don't wear the hoodie. Like, how can you say, I know that we all heard that argument, which was, well, why do you have to wear hoodies like that if you know that then you'll be racial profile? That is ridiculous to tell somebody what they can and cannot wear.
It's just what Jeannie said. It's not even about the hood.
Nope. Yeah,
It's
but a lot
about
of people, did you hear that argument? A lot of people will say,
They're always coming up with that.
Why can't they
But that's
just,
why those
well, then
people-
why can't they just wear, you know, their little polo shirts and khakis? Like,
No,
everybody don't want to dress like
that's
that.
whack. We don't want to dress like we're at a country club.
But people will literally say that well, if they keep seeing that this is happening, why don't they change the way they dress?
But that's why those people should be watching this episode right now, because the conversation needs to be had to change their old, dated minds.
It's America.
Exactly.
You wear wherever you want to wear. You know, if you want to dress up like a country club, go ahead. If you want to dress up, go ahead.
So stupid.
It's the
But you
truth.
shouldn't be profiled based
Because of
on
what
what
you
you're
wear.
wearing.
Well, do understand that the goalposts are always moving for black people, period, right?
Oh,
Today
yeah,
is
girl.
hoodies, used to be saggy pants.
Correct.
Now, it's always something, but those are just smoke screens to, again, weaponize our skin. That's all it's about.
Facts.